But concentrating on being a tree was difficult because Marven kept thinking of the bundle on the train platform. His mother, his father, his 2 big sisters, his 2 little sisters. He belonged in Duluth with them, not in the middle of the great North Woods with a grizzly. The hot tears streaming down his cheeks turned cold, then froze. When another tree showered snow, Marven, startled, shot out across the lake. As he reached the shore, a huge shadow slid from behind the trees. The breath froze in Marven's throat. In the thick purple shadows, he saw a blue twinkle. Ah, Marven! Jean-Louis held a glistening axe in one hand. He looked taller than ever. I mark the tree for cutting next season. He stepped closer to the trunk and swung the axe hard. Snow showered at Marven's feet. Ah, mon petit, you cry. Jean-Louis took off his glove and rubbed his huge thumb down Marven's cheek. You miss your mama? Your papa? Marven nodded silently. Jean-Louis, he whispered. The huge lumberjack bent closer. I thought you were a grizzly bear. You what? Jean-Louis gasped. You think I was a grizzly? And Jean-Louis began to laugh, and as he roared, more snow fell from the tree, for his laugh was as powerful as his axe. As they made their way back to the sled paths, Marven heard a French song drifting through the woods. The other jacks came down the path, their saws and axes slung across their shoulders, and Marven and Jean-Louis joined them. Evening shadows fell through the trees, and as Marven skied alongside the huge men, he hummed the tune they were singing. One day followed the next. Every morning, in that time when the night had worn thin but the day had not yet dawned, Marven shouted, Up! Lève-toi! Lève-toi! to Jean-Louis. Together they would go to the dining hall, where one day Marven would eat steak and oatmeal without milk. The next day he would eat oatmeal with milk and flapjacks but no steak. Jean-Louis always ate the bacon and anything else Marven left. And every afternoon after that, Marven would finish his work well before sunset and ski into the woods. Although the worry that his family might catch the terrible sickness nagged at him constantly, when he was in the woods, his fears grew dim in the silence and shadows of the winter forest. And every day he would fall in beside Jean-Louis as the jacks returned to camp, and he would hum the French songs that Jean-Louis told him were about a beautiful woman in the far, far north, or a lonely bear in its den, or a lovely maiden named Go-with-Clouds. At night, after supper was done, Marven learned the lumberjack songs and how to play their games, the ones he could manage, like axe throwing. A jack would heave an axe from 30 paces at the tail end of a log. For Marven, they moved the mark up to 10 feet. The jacks challenged each other to barrel lifting and bucksaw contests, but Marven was too small for those. He was not, however, too small to dance. Sometimes he danced on the floor, and sometimes Jean-Louis lifted him, and Marven did a little two-step right there in his stocking feet on the shoulders of the big lumberjack. In April, 4 months after Marven had arrived at the camp, the snow began to melt. Mr. Murray said to Marven, I promised your parents I'd send you back while there was still enough snow for you to ski on. Every day it grows warmer. You better go before you have to swim out of here. I'll send your parents a letter to say you're coming home, but I don't know what I'll do for a bookkeeper. So it was planned that Marven would leave on the last day of the month. When the day came, he went to the bunkhouse to find Jean-Louis. Ah, Marven! Jean-Louis tasted Marven's name as he had the first time he had ever said it, as if it were the most delicious French pastry in the world. I have something for you, mon petit. He got up and opened the chest at the end of his bed. You are a woodsman now, he said, and handed Marven a brand new axe. The head was sharp and glinting. The handle glistened like dark honey. Merci, Jean-Louis. Merci beaucoup, Marven whispered. Jean-Louis went with Marven all the way to the train station. When the snow ran out on the banks of a muddy creek near the depot, he turned to Marven, grinned widely, and said, Up, up, lève-toi, Marven. The giant of a man swung the small boy onto his shoulders, skis and all, and carried him across to the opposite bank. As the train pulled away, Marven waved at Jean-Louis through the window, which had become foggy with his breath. Au revoir, he murmured. Au revoir, Jean-Louis. Marven sat alone on the train and thought of his family. Who would be waiting for him at the station? He felt the edges of his new axe. It was so sharp, so bright. But it was good only for cutting wood. What could it do against the terrible flu that had sent him away? With each mile, the land slid out from under its snowy cover. When the train finally pulled into the station in Duluth, Marven pressed his face against the window, the glass fogging as he searched the crowd on the platform. When Marven stepped down from the train, he was still searching. Everyone looked pale and winter-worn, and not a single face was familiar. Then suddenly, he was being smothered with kisses and hugs. His little sisters were grabbing him around his waist. His big sisters were kissing his ears, and then all of them tumbled into Mama's and Papa's arms, and they were one big hugging bundle. You're not dead, Marven said. His sisters, Mama, Papa, Aunt Giza, and Uncle Moishe crowded around him in a tight circle. He turned slowly to look at each face. Nobody's dead, Marven repeated softly. The sickness is over, said Mama, and you are finally home.